All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Household Hazardous Waste webinar. My name is Ben Allen. I'm the state senator representing the 24th State Senate District, which is Santa Monica Mountains, West Side, South Bay, and Hollywood communities of Los Angeles County. This is an interesting topic that I've gotten a chance to learn about over the years as I've gotten involved with waste reduction and waste management. And we just want to go over the basics first. I mean, this is ultimately about making sure that people are better aware of some of the programs that are available within the county, where they're located near where you live, so that you can be a responsible manager of the hazardous waste that exists right in your home. We'll talk about some of the relevant legislation that relates to this issue, some of which I've been working on and some others as well. And then we'll have a broader discussion and answer whatever questions might have about the topic. We know that it's right in the name, right? There's waste that is in our homes that, if not properly managed, is hazardous. Can be hazardous to human health, to the environment. So ultimately, we all have a shared interest in ensuring that these particular products have a proper end of life. That will only benefit us both in terms of health and public safety. And we know there are some certain products that seem innocuous, but they can exist in our environment for years and years after they've been used and may continue to be harmful if not properly managed. And unfortunately, oftentimes, household hazardous waste is improperly disposed of, most often because of just simply consumer confusion or lack of know-how. And this can be detrimental to all of us. Even if it gets in the landfill, it can help to end up leaching. We've got a terrible landfill fire that's in place right now up in Chiquita Canyon. So even if things get into the system, and if not properly managed and properly diverted, they can cause all sorts of environmental hazards. So we've got some wonderful experts who are here with us today to help us get our heads around this tough issue. It's a topic that I've been working on quite a bit. We had SB 1143, which sought to create a extended producer responsibility system for household hazardous waste. Unfortunately, we have to scale it back somewhat. We now have it focused on paint and paint care, but we're going to come back and continue working on this issue to have a more coherent system for the state. And we'll be talking about that as we go along. But let's start with Courtney Scott, who's here, who's been working in this topic for over 12 years now. She served as the Household Hazardous Waste Program Manager for Zero Waste Sonoma since 2016, managing their household hazardous waste, e-waste, and solar panel programs for the Sonoma County. Courtney was recently selected by the North Bay Business Journal for a 40 under 40 list in 2024. She's been working to build a second household hazardous waste facility in Sonoma County. Not cheap to build these things, I've been learning about. But she's been really great. She's been providing technical assistance to Senator Blakespear, my colleague, and us in our office on legislation relating to the safe disposal of various types of hazardous waste. In Senator Blakespear's case, marine flares, which has been a bill that she's been working on. So without further, let me turn it over to Courtney, and then we'll hear from other panelists.
All righty, thank you, everyone, and big thank you to Senator Allen and my co-presenters for this opportunity. Like Senator Allen said, I work for Zero Waste Sonoma. I am the Household Hazardous Waste Program Manager, and I'll be describing some of the basics of household hazardous waste to you. So just a brief introduction of what Zero Waste Sonoma is. We're a joint powers authority, which means that we're a government entity, kind of like a special district that manages certain waste streams for all 10 jurisdictions in Sonoma County. So Sonoma County is the county in red up there in the North Bay area. And here's a list of the 10 jurisdictions that we represent. Next slide. So the reason why we're here today, what is household hazardous waste? Moving forward, I will be calling it HHW and just using that term because it's a little faster. So HHW is waste that is dangerous for human, animal, or environmental health and safety. They're items that can't go in the garbage, recycling, or compost bins. So they can't go in your curbside bins. They can't go in public dumpsters, and they really need to be managed separately from any of the traditional waste streams because of the equipment and contamination and safety issues that are potential through the process of collection. HHW comes from residents, as you can guess from the title, household hazardous waste. And they're items that are easily purchased at big box stores, so things that you can usually buy at like Target or Home Depot. And I really like this image. This is something that the EPA puts out, but this gives you an idea of where in your home you'd be most likely to encounter household hazardous waste. So this is usually in California, we don't really have basements, maybe not even attics, but usually I like to say it's in the garage or shed. It's in probably your bathroom, and it's probably under your kitchen sink. Those are the areas where you're most likely to find household hazardous waste. Next slide, please. So this is going to talk about the categories, and we call these hazard classes. So these are how we determine how to sort our hazardous waste. And these are the main characteristics that would determine that it's a hazardous waste. So if an item is flammable, that could either be a solid, liquid, or gas. So a flammable item would be gasoline or matches or any sort of item that has oil in it. Any sort of like polish is probably going to be flammable. So that's a characteristic to look out for. Corrosivity is another characteristic. So if an item is a strong acid or base, either under 2 or over 12.5, that's going to mean it's corrosive. And that means it could cause skin damage. It could even burn through certain metals. So you'll have to store it differently. So that's something to look out for. The next is toxic, and this might be the most common. So this would be things like rodenticides, pesticides. A lot of your cleaners are going to be considered toxic. And these would be toxic to either humans or animals. These can be toxic if you're exposed through ingestion, through inhaling, or absorbing through your skin. Let's see. There are a few other hazard classes, but these are the main categories that we'll focus on. And all of them are going to fall into the 3 umbrellas of either a physical hazard, an environmental hazard, or a health hazard. Next slide, please. So in your home, this is what a container might look like of something that you purchased from the store. There may not be pictograms like the slide before on the label, but you will find something like warning or danger. That's going to indicate that it's household hazardous waste and should definitely be managed separately and safely. If you're uncertain if a product is a hazardous waste, you can also look up what's called an SDS, a safety data sheet. And that is something that the company is required by law to provide. It'll describe all the different types of hazards, all the different type of exposure methods, and how to properly dispose of that item. Next slide. So this is a list that you can find on our website at zerowastesonoma.gov. And this is just kind of common household hazardous waste that you might find around the house. Again, separated into those categories that I mentioned earlier. So something that I don't think many people think about is hair care products, makeup, propane. A lot of people put propane in the recycling bin, but that's a hazardous waste and needs to be handled separately. So this is a pretty good list, but there's millions and millions of products out there, and there's no way we can have an exhaustive list. Next slide. So another large category of hazardous waste is e-waste. So this stands for electronic waste. And these have a little fewer rules for collection. And so you may see places like Staples or Best Buy even accepting e-waste back for proper recycling. And here's a pretty good list of e-waste, but again, this there's thousands, maybe millions of products for e-waste, so you can't have an exhaustive list. And one thing that I want you to keep in mind is just because it has a cord doesn't mean it's e-waste. And plastic has become a big problem in the e-waste industry. And a lot of e-waste recyclers have stopped accepting items that are 95% plastic because it's just not economical for them to accept it and have to manage the plastic. Next slide. So there's a few different types of HHW programs allowed in California, and Genesis will later go into some of the options available in your area, but we are limited to the types of programs that we can offer. And sometimes people get really frustrated that, you know, I should be able to put this in my curbside bin, but there's reasons we can't do that. And mostly it comes down to safety, right? Like you can't have, let's say, let's go back to propane. If propane gets in a garbage truck and that garbage truck then compacts, right? If that compacts and bursts that propane tank, that's going to cause an explosion and a fire in that garbage truck. That's a major problem. And same thing when it comes to the recycling center, the sorting facilities. It's going to have many opportunities in the sort line to either spill, explode, catch fire, and cause problems there for not only the safety of the equipment, but the safety of the employees. So that's why we're limited in how we can accept hazardous waste here. So you're going to see things like a permanent facility, which is in the photo. That's going to be a permanent location that has regular hours where you can come and drop off items. There, you could have temporary collection events, which is basically you offer this in a parking lot of, say, your community center for a day. Maybe you're open for 4 hours that day and the community can come to that location. A door-to-door pickup program is complicated and expensive, but very worthwhile investments for certain local jurisdictions. The resident has to be home, and it's basically folks like us at Zero Waste Sonoma can come to that house and pick that up for them. We do charge for that service. Curbside is a different type of program where you can you're limited to the certain 4 different types of items that you can leave on the curb. So those are items that are a lower hazard, and we're not too concerned about sitting on the curb until the garbage haulers can come pick that up. A mobile facility, there's actually none in California, so I won't even bother with that. And then a recycle only facility is going to be like a hut maybe at your city hall that accepts motor oil and batteries. That's a recycle only. So you might see those around as well. Next slide, please. Okay, and then so these are statistics for Sonoma County specifically, but it is good to know. So in our population here is 500,000 people. And in last year, we collected almost 3 million pounds of HHW and e-waste. And then an important distinction for when it comes to disposal is that for us and most HHW programs in the state send their e-waste to a recycler in California. But it's very common practice for HHW to be shipped to a different state because incineration is a major disposal method for household hazardous waste, and we don't have any of those incinerators here in California. So you can see our disposal methods here on the pie chart. You can see that recycling was our major destination method, and that's mostly due to e-waste. And then incineration, like I said, is another major source. And then producer responsibility organizations, so that would be like paint and thermostats, and Heidi will be talking a little bit about that later.
So someone, by the way, just wrote in, what are those low impact e-waste items that can be left outside on the curb for pickup?
So it's not necessarily e-waste items. It is lower hazard class. So it's going to be motor oil, oil filters, latex paint, and then certain universal waste. But that is going to be dependent on the jurisdiction if they offer a curbside program. There are not many in the state. Next slide, please. Okay, so I've only got 30 seconds left, but I just wanted to put these on here, and you can, you can figure out for yourself, think about whether or not these products on the screen are considered hazardous waste. And I do want to point out vape pens are extremely problematic and should be collected specially. I don't know if they're collected in your jurisdiction. Genesis can touch on that. Same with solar panels. We're working on legislation to get solar panels collected and recycled properly. And then this vacuum up here is most certainly not e-waste in our county because it is 95% plastic. Okay, and that's all the time I have. Thank you so much. And are we doing questions now or at the end?
I think we'll do them at the end. I mean, just that there was that one point about, I guess, someone wrote in to say that they, you should take the lid off of the paint can if you but we can deal with that later. Take a look at some of the chat that's been on there. So let's take the questions later. Let's go to Genesis now, if you don't mind. I think it's probably better structurally. So next up is Genesis Rodriguez, who's a public affairs specialist with the LA County Sanitation Districts, which is a public agency that's responsible for managing wastewater and solid waste services for over 5 million residents in the LA area. At the districts, Genesis oversees a $300,000 advertising program. She coordinates outreach for approximately 45 annual household hazardous waste events around the county. And she plays an important role in public outreach for a lot of the initiatives around this topic, including the Pure Water Program, which is one of the nation's largest water recycling efforts. Of course, our ability to continue to produce clean water does, among other things, really rely on a better approach to the disposal of household hazardous waste in our county. So anyway, she's great. We're really excited to have her on as well. Genesis Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. And Senator Allen, thank you so much for giving us the platform to talk a little bit more about this program and how we serve LA County. For all of you that are here, I know your presence means that you're committed to protecting our environment. You understand that properly disposing of HHW and e-waste is going to help with safeguarding public health and protecting our ecosystems. And I'm very happy to talk about a little bit more about our program and how it is that we serve you. So we've been hosting HHW events since the late 1980s. This is a partnership with us, the LA County Sanitation Districts and LA County Public Works. California has always been at the forefront of recycling initiatives. So back then, this was a very new thing. We were championing recycling efforts. We host about 40 HHW events a year, and a lot of these events, it's on and off, so on one year, off the next year, but we try to hit as many cities as possible and covering all the bases throughout LA County. So in total, we work with about 57 cities plus the unincorporated areas. Okay, so Courtney already talked about what HHW is. So now getting into the actual how to prepare for, going to an HHW event, what to expect. We try to make it as easy as possible. It's very similar to a drive-through or the Target pickup. If you like that, you drive up to your pickup spot and you just unlock your trunk and someone, if you're a Target, then they put your items in your trunk. In this case, you leave all your items in your trunk, you go through the drive-through, you pop the trunk and someone takes the HHW out. And so just keep in mind, there is a limit of 125 pounds, or it's illegal to transport more than 125 pounds or 15 gallons of household hazardous waste per trip. And since this is one big drive-through, we want to be as efficient as possible. So bring your HHW and items that you're okay leaving behind. A lot of times we just pop the trunk, grab the items with all the HHW and take it with us. And the other thing to point out is once you arrive to the spot, there will be signs all over the place. You'll see the traffic cones and you'll see staff on site kind of directing you to the line and where to go. And it's a very, very seamless process. We get kudos all the time for how easy it is. People expect that it's going to be difficult or they're going to have to get off. And a lot of times there's no contact. You don't even need to get out of your car. And this is an example of the flyer that we send out. For the most part, it's bilingual in English and Spanish. And sometimes, depending on where the event is located, we'll do other languages as well. Next, there you go. Okay, so now to what you can bring, which Courtney talked a lot about what labels household hazardous waste, but putting it out there, motor oil, oil filters, antifreeze, you have paint thinners, any batteries that you have, any regular batteries, car batteries, mercury thermometers, any fluorescent light bulbs or regular light bulbs. Use needles or sharps. This one's big. Maybe you need insulin or you need to take those B12 shots and you have a bunch of sharps laying around. Definitely bring them all in. We have a separate area where you can dispose of those. Any unwanted or expired.
On that, Genesis, I'm so sorry for interrupting, but someone asked a question directly about needles. Patty Johnson, she was saying, what about the pens that are used for injecting medication like Zepbound? The needle is contained, it has a cap on it, so can we throw it away in the trash? Do you know about that in particular with regards to sharp?
Not specifically, but I do know that we'll definitely accept them.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. But yeah, ideally bring them to an HHW event and we'll take them in with the rest of the needles. Let's see. So going on to, any unwanted or expired prescriptions, like over-the-counter medications. So think your ibuprofen, think, Claritin, Zyrtec, any over-the-counter medications. Feel free to bring over any, even things like glipizide you can bring over. And we'll talk about the controlled substances later. But we take that, propane tanks, as you saw in the photo before that, and also e-waste. So this includes any old laptops that you have, any old computers, TV monitors, cell phones, iPods. I know we don't really see or talk about iPods anymore, but a lot of times people move and they end up finding their storage with their iPod. So we'll take all of that, anything with a battery. If it can turn on and off, if it has a screen, we'll definitely take it. And now we'll go into what you cannot bring in the next slide.
Because I am hearing what someone just wrote about whether the extent to which these programs really do accept needles or EpiPens, but you're saying that is it your sense that most HW programs do?
We'll take them in very small quantities. I was just told I have the HHW program manager on hand. Lisa, did you want to clarify that one?
So as far as the EpiPens,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
so we take, if the customer brings in their needles or what have you, they go in a separate area on site. So we'll just take whatever they put in there and it all goes to incineration. So we don't affect any of that material that comes in, if that answers the question.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt again. I'd love to hear about
No worries. We're here to, I like that this is more of a conversation so we can answer them as we go. Okay, so the things you can't bring, obviously no explosives, ammunitions, no tires, no business waste, because business waste tend to be large quantities, right? So we're designed for households specifically. We do have a separate program. Well, I'll put the number in at the end where if you're a small business interested in this program, if you're a small business interested in disposing of hazardous waste, we have a program for you. No white goods or appliances. So a lot of times we'll get phone calls for refrigerators, stoves, or furniture. That's all bulky item pickup. So usually your city, whoever your contracted waste hauler is, you can contact them. Usually you have like a limit of how many white goods or appliances or furniture you can give up a month. Usually that's already worked into your bill. So you can call them. It's free. So we encourage that for the white goods and appliances. And no controlled substances. So we don't take any of the, harder stuff like the opioids, steroids, depressants. For those, we have the sheriff's department has a separate take back program where we'll talk a little bit about later. I know Heidi's going to discuss the drug take back program, and I'm going to give you a website too for that. And no biohazardous waste, so no bodily fluids, no animal waste, microbial waste, any of that.
What are white goods, by the way?
White goods like refrigerators.
Uh-huh.
Basically, yeah, like refrigerators, large appliances, basically.
Okay.
Okay, so upcoming, let's see. Okay, so upcoming events. So we do have this event in Covina that we have going on this Saturday, but that's out of your area. I'd like to focus on the 4 we have coming up that are in your areas. So we have one coming up in Carson on November 9th. It's at the AK Warren Water Resource Facility. That's our largest treatment plant facility. And so it'll be open from November 9th, Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We also have at the Culver City Wendy Museum on December 7th, and these are all Saturdays. Malibu, we're going to have it at the Civic Center in the parking lot. That's December 14th. And we're going to be at Lomita City Hall as well. That's December 21st. And those are all fairly close to you guys. I'm going to go to the next slide, but I do have a website link towards the end of the presentation where you can go if you didn't get any of this information. We also, the city of LA, so we all kind of partner together. So we have, the roundups, we call them HHW event roundups throughout the cities, right? Different cities throughout the years. City of LA has these permanent, they call them safe centers. So these permanent locations throughout City of LA that you can count on, they're open every Saturday and Sunday. And you don't have to live in City of LA to be able to take your waste there as well. And vice versa. With our program, you can live in the City of LA and still bring your waste. So we have the one in San Pedro, the Hyperion is in our neighborhoods, right? And we have the UCLA one as well. That one's open Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And again, I'm gonna put the link shortly after so that you can visit it on the website. These are 2 other permanent locations that LA County Public Works hosts. So we have Signal Hill, that's open second and fourth Saturday of the month. And then we also have a facility up in the Antelope Valley. So that one's in Palmdale, open the first and third Saturday of every month as well. And then here's the fun stuff. Stay connected. If you missed any of these or you want to see more upcoming events that we have in the coming year, we're going to be posting that on our website soon. So you can go to our website, lacsd.org/HHW. If you're getting ready to go to an HHW event and you still have some questions about what you can or can't bring, feel free to give us a call. Our number is listed right there, 1-800-273-0173. You can call, ask, and we'll let you know if it's accepted or not. Social media, if you have an Instagram or if you're on Twitter, you can follow us at Sand Districts. And there we post the upcoming events throughout the whole year. We'll post them a week before. And then soon we're going to be posting all the events that we have scheduled for every single month as well. And then, so that way you can see when the next one coming up in your area is. And if all else fails or you don't want to talk on the phone, you can just send us an email at info@lacsd.org. Send us a quick email, say, hey, can I bring this or not? Or hey, when's the next one in my area? And we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And that concludes my presentation for today. Oh, actually, no, there's one more thing I want to talk about. the additional programs that we have. So we talked about white goods not being accepted or furniture. We get a lot of calls about mattresses, if they can bring the mattress to the HHW roundups. You cannot bring the mattresses, but there is this cool program. It's called Bye Bye Mattress. If you go to buybuymattress.com, you put in your zip code and you literally have a bunch of locations very near the zip code you listed where you can dispose of your mattress for free. I actually used this. It came in handy one time. And we have Paint Care that I believe Heidi's going to talk a little bit more about, but Paint Care is another program. This website, you go to paintcare.org, you type in your zip code, and it'll give you a bunch of locations that will take your used unwanted paint cans for free. And then last but not least, we have the No Drugs Down the Drain program. What basically it's a website that it's a collection of programs like MedSafe LA, the sheriff programs. Basically, it's another interactive map where you can type in your zip code and look at all the take back stations near you where you can actually take those drugs, like the controlled substances that I told you that weren't allowed. And that is it. Those are the main 3 programs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, lots of questions have been popping up, but I think I'm going to, okay. My staff wants me to ask you about smoke detectors. This is Sam Lou's passionate issue. I saw Heidi posted something on it. Can you give me your sense on smoke detectors?
Yeah, smoke detectors, they have they do contain some radioactive material. We do accept them, but we prefer that they're returned back to the manufacturer. So a lot of the times when you buy them, the manufacturer will, sometimes even have a mail back so that you can send your old one back, and we prefer it that way, but if you do have a few, we will take them at our HHW events.
Okay. And then small appliances, what is a small appliance for your reasons, for your with your definition?
Like microwaves are accepted. And then toasters, are the toasters accepted, Lisa?
So I think the toasters are not. I think we don't take any of the smaller appliances, blenders and all that kind of thing. We don't usually take those. We do take the microwaves though.
And what about air fryers?
No.
No. Okay. All right. And so what happens if you have one of these items that's not accepted? I mean, like an air fryer, what would you do? What's the right thing to do?
So what I've been doing, there's a website called Earth 911, and I've recommended people check that out to see if they can find a local place that will take those. I don't know if Best Buy, I think Courtney mentioned Best Buy does take back some of these items as e-waste or something, and they may take them also. So we just try to find different outlets for folks. Earth 911, like I said, is a big one. Best Buy may take them.
Okay. Okay. All right. More to talk about, but I do want to just give our last but not least, a very good friend and a great leader in this space, Heidi Sanborn, the opportunity to also present. Heidi is both the founding director of the California Product Stewardship Council and now in her role as the president of the head of the National Stewardship Action Council, which works on solid waste, but particularly circularity around the country. And she's been a driving force of important extended producer responsibility bills around the country, certainly here in California, and worked very closely with our office on a number of major efforts with regards to extended producer responsibility, bringing together stakeholders on everything from plastics to medications, sharps, packaging, et cetera. As I mentioned, played a big role in helping to negotiate RSB 54, which created EPR for plastic foodware and packaging, including hard reuse, refill, and source reduction targets, providing California with $5 billion for remediation of packaging, making it the first in the world truly circular economy bill that we're all very proud of. So let me pass it over to Heidi for her presentation before we open it up to broader questions.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction, Senator. And if all of you are listening, don't know this already, Senator Allen is what I consider the nation's champion on circular economy bills and legislation, and been very effective at passing first in the nation, really high bar bills, and we're extremely grateful to him. And we were proud to be the sponsor of the Household Hazardous Waste Bill this year that turned into the Pay Care Expansion Bill. And I'm going to talk a little about that, but you can just tell from the questions and the back and forth why people are so confused, because we can't even clearly tell them what's a small appliance versus what's toxic, or it's radioactive, or it's not. And this is exactly the same, thing I've been dealing with now for 34 years, trying to help people understand, but the system isn't clear. So we're going to do our best to explain what we have now, but also where we're going, so that we're going to make your life easier and make these programs more convenient in the future. So, we advocate for an equitable circular economy here in the US. And you can go to the next slide, please, and I'll explain what that means. But we have a 501c3 and a 501c4. C3, we don't lobby. The C4, we do. And we lobby across the country and hope that the US will attain an equitable circular economy in the near future. Next slide, please. So this is the analogy I give people that they tend to remember. When the bathtub is overflowing, what is the first thing that a smart person will do? It's not grab the mop, it's turn off the spigot. But we've been doing an awful lot of mopping in this industry instead of going upstream and turning off the spigot. And hazardous waste is just another example of it, where we're putting things on the market like a smoke detector, which so many people mentioned in the chat. You weren't even clear it was radioactive. How would you know, right? So you're just putting it in the trash. And is it electronic, or is it a hazard, or what is it? Many of you have never heard of universal waste, because that's just kind of a back of the house clarification for us, that it's universally found like batteries, but we've declassified it from hazardous, so it's easier for us to collect because so many people have it. People don't know what that classification means. These are the things that are making this so confusing for everybody, but we want to go upstream and turn off the spigot, and that's been my life's work. Next slide, please. So what is a circular economy? It's based on 3 primary principles according to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation definition, which I subscribe to, which is: first, design waste and pollution out of the system, turn off the spigot. 2 is keep products and materials in use, so keep them repairable, durable, and recyclable or compostable. And then lastly, go back and regenerate the natural systems you've harmed. And the only bill in the world I know of that did all 3 was SB 54 by Senator Allen, which addressed packaging, because we not only were getting source reduction and recycling, but we also got cleaning up the mess through the $5 billion that the plastics industry will pay California to clean it up starting in 2027. Next slide, please. So we've had a long track record of success. I, again, started the California Product Stewardship Council, so my time doing this goes all the way back to 2007-8 with the first bills on mercury thermostats, which I had also put in the chat, because that is a free program as well, Thermostat Care. If you have one of those old mercury thermostats, you have a free place to drop it off. And I put that in the chat before. But we've done many bills, everything from carpet to the medicines and needle program, which I'll talk about in a minute. Truth in labeling for things like not calling vapes disposable, which was a thing until we passed the bill. Next slide, please. So we've been working on this a while. And there's different policy tools. One of them is extended producer responsibility, where we extend the responsibility from the producer beyond just selling the product, but all the way through its life cycle, and making that be a cost internalized into the price of the product. So basically, when you buy a product, the price signal is the full life cycle price. It's not just the cost to make it, because somebody still has to pay for those end of life costs. And if you've made the choice to buy the product, you have full information if it's in the product price. And I'll give you a short example. Fluorescent lamps used to cost about a buck a piece, and it was costing us $2 to $3 a piece to recycle them. Well, if that product price had been included, the end of life costs, you might have looked at buying an LED sooner, which has none of those end of life costs and is actually more durable and uses less energy on top of it. Next slide, please. So there's lots of policy tools we can use. But EPR, basically, I will just say that the devil's always living in the details in legislation, and there's lots and lots of details. The senator knows, so I won't get into all of that. But these are really good programs when they work, but they have to be set up correctly in law. Next slide, please. So the benefits of producer responsibility are that when the manufacturers have to own that responsibility for the whole life cycle of their products, they then think about the cost of those end of life costs to make these products more durable, reusable, repairable, even less toxic, because when they're toxic, as Courtney and Genesis will tell you, it's extremely expensive to handle these products and it's dangerous. So we create safer recycling systems. And I will let you know that our industry, the waste industry, is one of the top 10 most dangerous in this country. And the reason is not because we're sloppy. It's because of what's getting put in the waste streams that our people are being exposed to. And that's why we're so vigilant on this. And we are, manufacturers will be motivated to keep those end-of-life costs down. And then again, personal responsibility, if you choose to buy something and you use it and benefit from it, paying the full life cycle costs is appropriate instead of socializing those costs on everybody else. So again, this is just an example or the list of all the products that have gone under this type of program. Everything from the agricultural pesticide 5-gallon containers, picture at the top right, that's what's used in the ag industry. Recalled products is one of the first thing I worked on, the lead paint lunch boxes, mercury thermostats, paint, carpet, all of them, all the way down to this year. We actually banned single-use 1-pound propane cylinders because those are being thrown in the recycling bins, and you can't tell if a gas cylinder is empty. And when the gas expands and it's heated up, if we hit it with a forklift or something, it can blow up and cause a fire. Next slide, please. So I was chair of the Recycling Commission of California for 2 years. The #1 recommendation of the 17 of us, with a 17-0 vote, was that we have household hazardous waste extended producer responsibility passed in this state. In just one MRF, material recovery facility, where they sort the recyclables, they showed us that they had their own hazardous waste facility in the back lot. And I asked, why did they have that? And they said, because they're pulling 183,000 pounds of hazardous waste off that sort line that was only supposed to be recyclables out of blue bins. And that's dangerous. And it's costly. And it's also meaning that we could be contaminating those plastics and the other materials in there. I just saw a study today that black plastic is showing up with PFAS at very high amounts and other chemicals because some of our recycling isn't clean, because this has been my big worries. We're contaminating our packaging with hazardous waste. Next slide, please. And this is a nightmare and appropriate that it's Halloween week. If you haven't seen vapes, this is what they look like. There's picture on the left, which is bright, colorful ones that were cleaned up that came into a hazardous waste facility. There's one in the top middle. That is actually vapes floating in sewer water. Or I'm sorry, storm drain. And then the picture below it on the street is after they're pulled out of the storm drain. We've got TV spots about the dangers of this. They're finding them all over riverbanks now. And it's a real problem for schools. They're being left in schools. They get thrown in the trash. The kids are even flushing them down toilets and plugging up the sewer systems because they don't want to get caught with them. So it's very dangerous. Next slide, please. That's a new hazardous waste stream that we have to deal with. So Senator Allen introduced SB 1143 this year. We got all the way to the very end, second house, and we probably could have jammed it through, but I think we made the right decision, and the senator agreed to pull out the rest of the products and then just focus on expanding the paint care program, because that was what everybody could agree on. And the regs were already started on expanding them to include aerosol paints. So the long and the short of it is, we're only the second state to try it. Vermont has already passed it, and it's a tiny little state. We wanted to back them up. The industry's that they're working with include, you know, large pesticide companies, names like Monsanto and Dow. And so it would be helpful if we could work with them and finding solutions for this stuff. Next slide, please. We had quite a bit of opposition from some of the big industries, so we're going to take this fall and more time to talk with them. Next slide, please, and work with them on this. This is obviously a big change. Some of the arguments were that this is going to be expensive. They want more time, so they got more time, so that's good. And they want to do a deeper dive into what the real problem is. And those of us like Courtney and Genesis know what the problem is. They see it every single day, and your bills, garbage rates reflect it. It's very expensive to handle these things. Next slide, please. And in fact, our best guess is that we're getting 5 to 10% of hazardous waste collected properly. So 1143 was amended. You can now take, well, not now, but when the bill is rolled out in a couple years, you will be able to take arts and crafts paints, marine paint, furniture paint and oil, thinners, all the specialty paints back to the same program for paint care. And I did put that link into the paint care program now in the chat. But we had to pivot. We realized that this made the most sense for the state of California to do it this way. Next slide, please. So the governor did sign it, and we were very excited about that. Again, even things like lime wash, anti-fouling paint, road paint, wood preservative, fire retardant paint, dry fog paint, chalkboard paint, they're all covered under the law now. So the paint industry said, we want to do all of our products, not just have part of our products in this program and the rest of our products in another program. So that's what we did. Next slide, please. And we're the first in the nation to get this. So we're excited. There's a new director that just got appointed by Governor Newsom and the Department of Toxic Substances Control. So we're excited to work with her on this. Catherine Butler. So we're excited to, I actually have a meeting with her soon. I'm very excited about meeting her. Next slide, please. So collaboration is key. If anybody is interested in deeper dives on this, or if you're from another state or you're in this space, please let me know. We're having stakeholder meetings for the nation to try and coordinate these efforts across states, because we're hearing other states are going to introduce these bills. We are, you know, leading in that right now in California. So it'll be reintroduced this year in California. So let us know if you're interested and you can sign up with us. Next slide, please. And I'll put my name in the chat email so you can reach me. But I do want to say this, local action does work. On pharmaceuticals, the industry was not coming to the table. Alameda County passed an ordinance making the producers pay for the take back program of drugs. Went all the way to the US Supreme Court, and Alameda won. And then we had 12 counties pass ordinances on drugs before we could get the industry to negotiate with us at the state level, which we think ended up working really well. I hope we don't have to do that with household hazardous waste, but we might, I'm not sure. Hopefully the industry will work with us this year and we can get it done. Next slide, please. But I can remember sometimes these bills take many, many years, and it took us, from 2013 to 2018 to get this done at the state level for pharmaceuticals. But it was because LA County was about to pass an ordinance and they decided it would be better to work with us at the state level. Next slide, please. I want to thank Senator Jackson too. She came from Santa Barbara County. So again, that's the national impact that we had was huge by passing it in California first. And I hope someday we can pass it nationally. Next slide, please. But all those drop boxes that are out there for medicines and needles, those are saving you all a lot of money and making it easy and convenient. And I just want to highlight, I don't know what LA County's saving, but I know that the first county that thanked me was Contra Costa County's Recycle Smart. And they showed me this receipt that they saved $64,000 the first year of the bill being implemented. And this is the kind of thing we can see with hazardous waste when that gets passed. They just on needle collection at their hazardous waste facility, that's how much it was costing them every year just for needle disposal, $64,000. And that they now get reimbursed by the manufacturers for that cost. which means your taxes and garbage rates go lower. Next slide, please. So getting these bills done is hard. It takes a lot of work. And I also want to thank Senator Allen again, because he leads our these California Foundation for the Environment and the Economy Recycling Challenge study trips. And this is a picture of us all on the first trip in 2018 to Vancouver, Canada, where we showed the legislators and other stakeholders how extended producer responsibility works for packaging and medicines and aerosol cans and oil and smoke detectors. They even have that program up there, and we learned from them. Next slide, please. And they came back very committed and understanding. So again, we saw vetoes this year on EV batteries and marine flares. We're really hoping we're going to get household hazardous waste with also vapes this next year. And maybe we can get the vapes and cylinders in this hazardous waste bill. We'll see. Their critical rare earth minerals are becoming a big issue. Solar panels or anything e-waste that have them, we need them back for the next generation of products. And we're also going to be focusing on drywall, which is a big problem in landfills. Next slide, please. So that's pretty much it. We have a lot of support. We want to thank LA County Public Works and LA Sand being supporters, and many haulers, and we work with a broad group of stakeholders. Next slide. So if you're interested in following us, follow us on social media. That's free. Help us. We put out calls for action sometimes. And again, really happy to be here and answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Heidi. Appreciate it. On all the good work you continue to do, helping with our efforts, and you know, you've really provided a lot of expertise and national perspective too, which has really helped us as we've tried to push through various industry arguments and concerns. So thank you again. All right, so let's go on. We've got various questions that we received both before the webinar and then you know, and of course during. I mean, if anything, all of the questions are they really, and in some respects, some of the difficult answers that we've had, as Heidi says, really underscores the need for a more comprehensive and coherent system. And that was all the motivation that went behind our decision to you know, to try to do this bill in the first place. Obviously, you know, it ended up being difficult to get through in one session, but we really are, you know, we got commitments from industry to work with us. We really are going to push hard to get this done in the coming year, because if anything, this webinar just continues to raise to me all the reasons why we need a more coherent system, some greater producer responsibility associated with this. You know, one of you know, Katya had a question about how low-income folks and how difficult it is, and you know, one of the goals of our bill was to increase convenience and really forcing the producers who know their products best, who know their markets best, who know their distribution chains best, to figure out how to make it easier to dispose of household hazardous waste. So with all of that, let me just ask a couple of questions. I see Melanie's was asking about what the proper procedure for disposing of pharmaceutical drugs. Can cities host drug takebacks events and partner with LA Sanitation? I know that was partly dealt with. Who wants to just give a nice clear answer on that?
I think I can take it at least a little bit. And I don't know if you want to show let me show my screen, but I've got a website up that you can go and find where all the bins are, and you get all the details on what's accepted. EpiPens is a great question. I remember when we first passed the bill, some of the bins and the locations were not accepting EpiPens, and we said that needs to get fixed. So you have to check with the site, but I think now if they're not accepting them in the bin, I think they have to give you a mail back container where you can mail them back. But again, I don't want to, Genesis, if you have anything else on that. And as far as having any more collections, I don't know if that makes sense, because right now we have hundreds of collection locations in LA County. So I think you just need to go, and I'll actually put the link in the chat so you can find the collection locations near you.
Genesis, thoughts? I mean, also there was a question about over-the-counter medications, so the extent to which there's a difference. Maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, over the counters is the stuff that you'd find not getting as a prescription at your pharmacy, all the cough syrups and all that stuff. They can go in the medicine collection program. What was negotiated that would not be collected was animal medications and needles, although I can tell you there's nobody at the bin saying, hey, is that an animal needle? You know, use that or animal Prozac. Nobody really pays attention. So although they are not funding that program, that is generally, they're saying animal stuff is not included, the over-the-counters are.
Okay. Genesis, did you want to add anything? No?
No,
Okay.
I think you covered it.
Does anyone have, someone asked how much waste LA County produces. Do we have any idea how to answer that question? I know it's a lot. But,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's tons. Let me pull up my database here. So just to give you an idea, in the last, just 2022 and 2023 numbers, we've served, and this is just the Los Angeles County Sanitation District's HHW roundups. This is separate from City of LA and what they've collected. So we've served close to 70,000 households. We've collected over 33 gallons of oil. And again, this is just for two years from our events. Over about 200,000 gallons of paint. 54,000 pounds of sharps, 165,000 pounds of e-waste, and 17,000 pounds of just computer monitors like e-waste and stuff. It's a lot.
Mind-boggling. Yeah,
And we've been tracking this information since, let me see. Our information dates back to the 80s when we started tracking the information. And since the late 80s, we've served well over 1 million households, almost 2 million. And this is just for our program alone.
Yeah. 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 Okay, a couple of so if you can post again the link to sign up for the November 8th meeting. Heidi, folks wanted to ask about that. You know, if I could just ask the host, sometimes you are replying to the chat, but you're only posting to hosts and panelists. We want everyone to get to see it just as an internal Zoom thing. So please make sure you go.
I know it keeps changing on me. I'm sorry. I think I got it now.
So click on everyone, so that will get out to the entire list. I mean, look, I think we, you know, I guess the broader question is, okay, what happens to all the waste that doesn't actually get collected in the system? That should be, but isn't. It just goes to the landfill, right? And it just impacts our landfills.
A lot. Most of it is getting into a landfill, and then it goes through. It basically gets absorbed by the water in the landfill. That water comes out. It's called leachate. We put it in a settling pond, and we often send it back through wastewater treatment plants, which really can't get it all out. So that's why it's really important that we handle this correctly. It also can be illegally dumped or down storm drains and down the sink.
And then in some very, you know, serious, I mean, and then you have situations like we have at Chiquita Canyon right now, where there's literally a fire underground that we can't put out right now in a landfill because there's so much hazardous waste down there that is combustible, and the people living nearby are getting sick. So I mean, the consequences are terrible. And yet, unfortunately, as we've been discussing today, we put so much of the responsibility on regular folks to figure out, you know, and here we are, not even sure amongst ourselves. This is about as expert a group as we can get about what products ought to go where, let alone all the impacts, let alone how hard it is to, you know, for working people to navigate when they've got other priorities. I mean, from my perspective, this just underscores the need for a more comprehensive approach that we'd originally proposed with SB 1143, and why I'm just so fired up about getting something passed, so we can actually get the producers into the game to help us come up with solutions here and hold them responsible for the end use of a lot of these hazardous products that are making our environment dangerous. And it's just not, I just don't think it's reasonable, quite frankly, for us to be expecting average folks to know exactly what to do and handle all of this So it's why we need a better system. It's why we got to get our bill passed. So look, I'd love to just, we all want to go watch the World Series, and go Dodgers. But any final thoughts that the three of you want to raise before we close?
I'll just say that quickly. If you want to help us, I'm getting a lot of, comments in here. You can join us and follow us on social media, spread the word, get the word out. We have newsletters that go out every Friday explaining the latest, the latest science, the latest information, the latest programs. We have a webinar next week on plastic boat wrap and marine flares. And that's the kind of stuff that members get. And we are creating an army of people who can advocate for this successfully. And thankfully in California, we have Senator Allen who will help us get the hard job done.
Yeah, thank you. And I also wanted to thank everyone out here today for joining and hearing. Someone, asked, how do we help spread the word so that it's not just people that are politically and environmentally minded that find out about these events. We try to put money into advertising on social media. We'll target everyone that lives in that area when we're there. If you see those graphics, please, please, please share them with all your followers and friends. You can just quickly share to your stories if you're on Instagram, or do a quick Facebook share or like so that it can keep pushing it out to more people. But thank you. When you share that, then we get even more people involved. And then the only other thing I wanted to just answer really quick, someone asked about the Glendale Safe Center. The city of LA says that Safe Center has been closed indefinitely. We have no updates on that Safe Center, but we do have HHW events around those areas. I know we just had one in Burbank not too long ago. So if you follow us on social media or if you visit our website, you can check back to see when they come on. But we do have alternatives to help offset that a little bit.
And I just want to say thank you, Senator Allen, for taking the time to explain this to your constituents. I think it's really important for everybody to get a broad understanding of hazardous waste. And when we're shopping for things, maybe we'll be thinking twice about what we're grabbing, and trying to figure out, what to do with it afterwards.
All this stuff has an impact. And so obviously, we're really hopeful we'll be able to make some progress this year legislatively. But in the meantime, we all have to educate ourselves and do our best to ensure that the stuff that we're buying for our households are not harming other people after we dispose of them. So that's what this is ultimately all about. And I just want to thank the panelists so much for bringing your expertise and just each of you for devoting your careers and your lives to this work, this really important work of making our environment safer by getting these dangerous products into a safer place than the landfill, where they leach and they cause all sorts of damage. So thank you for all the folks who wrote in, for being so interested. We are all going to work together to get the word out to our fellow constituents and fellow Angelenos, and let's work hard to get some meaningful legislation done in the coming year that will address some of the systemic problems that are at play here. So thank you, everybody. Go enjoy Halloween, and of course, go Dodgers. Go vote too. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.